Hey, it's Captain Matt, Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon, and today we're talking about why it doesn't really matter what brand of used boat you're buying. Now, before you get too excited, let me explain what I'm talking about here. First, you need to understand that boat brands get bought and sold, and because of the seasonality and the cycles of the industry, they go out of business and they get bought and sold by private equity groups and boat groups that know what they're doing and people that start their own brands that want to get into it. And so you've got a lot of variety in even the same brand over time in the quality and the type of boat. So the best example, I think, is Chris Craft. Chris Craft has been buying boats for a long time, or been building boats for a long time. You go back to the wooden boats that were kind of the best of the best. They had a great reputation, great craftsmanship. And then over time, the company was bought and sold and bought and sold, and different management, different leadership brings in different perspectives on the right way to go with the industry. And so what happens is they start working and they change what they focus on. So you look at some of the Chris Crafts in the mid 2000s, and they don't have the beautiful lines that you from the older Chris Crafts. Well, they built those for a while and they weren't high quality. They got sold, and now they're owned by a private equity group. Well, actually, they were owned by a private equity group. Now they're owned by Winnebago, and they're back to this super high-end luxury boat with the old classic lines. But through that 70-year cycle, they were quality and they did different things throughout that time. Same thing happened. So if you look at more recently, you got Four Winds. That was a Genmar brand. Then it was bought by somebody else, and now it's owned by Beneteau. Scarab used to be a go fast boat, and then they bought the brand and they turned it into a jet boat, and now you're seeing the Scarab name show up on well crafts in the Beneteau line. So that brand has meant different things in different times and different quality. You've got Nautic Star. That was its own brand, spun out, and then Mastercraft bought it, and then they weren't able to do anything good with it, and now it's been bought by the Iconic Group that owns Donzi and some other performance brands. And the quality and what you can expect from that brand has gone up and down. You've got companies like Bennington, Godfrey, Barletta, Cobia, Pathfinder, Maverick, Hughes Group, the Maverick Boat Group. They've all been purchased recently by a new company. And so what does that mean? That means that maybe the level of quality will change. Maybe the direction of the company will change. Maybe the style of boats will change. I haven't seen it yet in any of those brands, just to be clear, but that's what's going to happen over time. So when you look at the brand, it depends on what year you're talking. It even, a brand like Sea Ray that's been owned by Brunswick for decades, they even have seasons where the leadership made some bad decisions and they made some bad boats. They made some ugly boats. They made some poor decisions on quality. So there's some years where you're like, those mid 80s Sea Rays were nowhere near the boats that they make today. Then they shipped off some of the SPXs to Mexico in the last couple of years, and well, that's had an impact on quality. So it depends on the brand. The next is, what's most important is the history of that boat that you're looking at. Not is Sea Ray a good brand, but is that Sea Ray 205 Sport that you're looking at, is that a good boat? How well has that been taken care of? How has that been used? How has that been maintained? That's what's most important as you're looking at used boats. And anything over that 5 to 7 year range, I start to say, hey, the only thing that matters is how well that boat's been maintained. Because here's the thing, is if it was going to break, if it was built cheaply, you're going to notice it. You're going to be able to tell that, oh, these hatches and latches don't match up. Oh, the seats are starting to tear and the seams are coming apart. Oh, I can see where this upholstery is starting to get sun damaged and fade and have issues there, and the gauges aren't working and this isn't working and that's broken. Well, that's going to show itself over time, so you can make your decision based on your inspection. And again, how well that boat's been cared for, because something is going to break. Well, in the 5 to 7 years, it's going to show itself that it's going to have an issue or signs of this is gonna have issues pretty soon. Now, there are things where brand does matter, okay? So, I kind of clickbaity with the brands don't matter, but they don't matter as much as people think initially, but there are some areas where they do. They matter in the resale value. And what I mean by that is some of the brands just have cachet. The name implies quality, and there are people that want that brand. So, boats like Cobalt, Bennington, Barletta, Chris Craft in some areas, Sea Ray, those names have a group of people that's what they want. That's what they grew up with. That says quality in their mind, and they maybe can't afford new, but they'll buy. That's the only brand that they want to buy, which helps bring the values up a little bit. Next is if the brand's unknown in your market area. So the boating is very regional and very fragmented. So there's some brands that are very popular in one area, but not very popular in others. And when you find a brand that's not very known in your market area, it's really going to push that resale value down. It's going to be much harder to sell, and you're going to have to sell much more based on a low price than having people swarming over looking for that type of boat. I had an example. I had a Rennell, which is a value level boat. It's not great built, but it just wasn't popular in our area. There was no Rennell dealers in the last 10 years, but somebody moved in from out of town, they brought it, and trying to sell that boat was very, very, very difficult. I ultimately had to tell the seller, listen, if you want to sell it, you're gonna have to come way down below book value because just nobody's interested in an unknown quantity, they just don't know what it is. Next is not the brand of the boat, but the brand of the motor. Do you have somebody in your market area that's going to be able to fix it, to repair it, to work on it, get parts for it? So if this happened to my brother, he bought a Crown Line, a good quality mid-tier boat from out of the area. It had a Volvo in it, and when he brought it back home to Nebraska, well, guess what? There were no Volvo technicians in Nebraska at that time. So now he had this boat, but he had nobody to do the service on it. And so that's one of the things that you want to consider. Brand is very important, that you've got somebody to work on the motor. Next is if you just want the prestige of saying, I own a Sea Ray, I own a Cobalt, I own a Barletta, or I own a Bennington, whatever it is, I own a Boston Whaler or a Grady White, that matters. And if it matters to you, probably is going to help on the resale because it's probably a more prestigious name. And the other thing that will make an impact is boats that tend to have better quality tend to also have a better ride. Like I'm on an 06 Sea Ray Sun Deck right now, and this thing rides amazing in rough water. It's a good quality boat. If I found something like a Azure or a Hurricane, the same size, everything, it would probably be cheaper, and part of that's going to be because that ride quality is lower. It's why I always encourage you to do a sea trial on any boat that you run, because even this boat, if it was damaged or they didn't take great care of it, when I run in rough chop, I'll be able to feel it on this boat. And on the cheaper brands, they just won't handle the rough conditions or feel as solid when you're running. So those are some of the areas where I think brand doesn't matter at all, and where it is important. If you have other thoughts on brand, make the comment down below. If there's some brand history videos that you would like to see, put that in the comments as well. That's a style of video that I'm thinking about doing. Give this a thumbs up if you found it valuable, and remember, life truly is better on a boat.